Go ahead and upgrade this to a commercial.
Engine 69, Engine 96, Engine 94, Router 91, Medic 95, and Graham all station alert. Channel Bravo 6, commercial structure fire.
They're screaming in the background, smoke alarm sounding.
You up the whole ceiling. I think we need to get our crews out.
That scene of a small one-story house. We have defensive fire conditions.
1094 establishing Canyon Command. Still in offensive strategy 010. Multiple reports of a tractor on fire.
That scene of a fast-moving brush fire, undetermined size at this time.
Battalion 94 and Engine 94 has seen small single-story residence. We got a working fire. Smoke from Alpha and Charlie. Engine 95, level 1, at the hydrant.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Pat Dale, Fire Chief of Graham Fire and Rescue. Happy Saturday. Thanks for joining me for virtual coffee. Although I have to say, my coffee is not actually virtual. I do have coffee. So we're here today to talk about, first of all, the benefit charge, which you will see on the November 3rd General Election Ballot as Proposition 1. So we'll be talking about that. I want to invite you to please feel free to ask questions, whether they're about the benefit charge, Proposition 1, or just anything related to our fire department, our staff, our service, anything at any time related to the fire department. So to get started, I'll just provide a brief overview of Graham Fire and Rescue. It's a very special place that we cover 70 square miles, covering the communities of Graham, Kapowson, Frederickson, Spanaway, and South Hill, and some others. We have 5 fully staffed, let me correct myself, 5 staffed stations with career firefighters and paramedics. We have 1 volunteer station. Yes, we still have volunteers and resident firefighters, and we love our volunteers. We continue to accept applications and interest at any time through our website for volunteer firefighters. Within those 5 staff stations, we have a total of 97 career firefighter and paramedics who are all dedicated to serving you. In the year 2019, we responded to just over 7,000 911 calls for service. In addition to the 97 career firefighter and paramedics and our volunteers, you might be interested in knowing that we also have fire goats. Yes, we have 3 staff members, Drip, Torch, and Frankie, that are part of a very special part of Graham Fire and Rescue. And just a little backstory on our goats. When I came to this department a few years ago, I found it really interesting that our firefighters who have to take care of lawns at the time, had to mow lawns and keep the weeds down. One of our stations had a large water retention area, almost an acre that was in need of maintenance and lawn care, and so our firefighters got some goats to put out in the area to keep the grass down, which I thought was brilliant. I got a kick out of that. Well, along the way, very interestingly, I learned that many of our firefighters, after difficult calls, which we respond to frequently, the firefighters would go out and after the call and feed and pet, spend some time with our goats, Drip, Torch, and Frankie. So they really became, not intentionally, but they became emotional support, behavioral assistance goats. I think that's really special. So I wanted to mention Drip, Torch, and Frankie, our fire goats. Hopefully you can stop by our station sometime and meet our firefighters and meet our goats. Okay, back to business. Just a brief overview of what the benefit charge is. it really starts with, well, our story really starts with, I'd like to say, in the year 2018, we had a ballot measure at that time for an excess levy called the Maintenance and Operations Levy. And I stood in front of you, our citizens, and said with passage of the Maintenance and Operations Levy, we would hire 18 firefighters, purchase a tender, which is a large water tanker truck to serve areas that don't have hydrants in our community, and recruit and onboard 14 volunteer firefighters. That was in 2018. We feel the warm support of our community, tangible in that it was passed in 2018. Thank you. And we have already done what we said we would do. We hold ourselves accountable, and we have hired 18 firefighters, brought on 14 volunteer residents, and purchased a water tender that will be here probably this month. So in doing so, I want our citizens and everybody tuning in and listening to know that that was noticed by our Washington State Surveying and Rating Bureau. And they came in and they rate a fire department or fire district about 460 in our state, and they rank them on their ability to provide fire protection services to a community. And the lower the rating, the better. And we were a 4, and in that process, we were re-rated to a 3. Now, what does that mean to you? Well, it literally means money back in your pockets as citizens of Grand Fire and Rescue, because everybody, including residential and commercial, should see a reduction in what you pay for your property insurance, your homeowner's insurance, your insurance for your property. So again, tangible results because we were supported by you and we did what we said we would do. It was noticed in a strict survey and rating. We went from a 4 to a 3. You'll save in your property insurance. Now, looks like we have a question. So we do have a question from Brandon. What do you have to do to become a volunteer, and how old? Okay, so I had mentioned the volunteer that we accept letters of interest. Go to our website, grandfire.org, and you'll find a spot on our website where we're accepting letters of interest. And then at the first of the year, 2021, we plan to hold a process to bring on another group of volunteers. So we love having people that are interested, and it's 18 years of age or older. Thank you, Brianna. So great question. And several people saying hi. Back, shout out to Sharon, Sue, and Karen. Hi back to you. Glad to have you joining us for coffee this morning. All right, I don't see any other questions coming in just yet. So back to the benefit charge, just a few facts to maybe generate some discussion as we have coffee together this morning. Back to the story. So having passed the Maintenance and Operations Levy back in 2018, and I said how we improved our service, and it's money back in the pockets of our citizens in the re-rate for your property insurance. The question then became the Maintenance and Operations Levy is a 4-year levy, and then it has to be back out on a ballot for voter approval. All of our funding currently comes from taxation on properties that has to be voter approved. So what I wanted to lead in our organization was a research, and the question became, is there an alternate way to fund our critical, essential, effective service that we deliver from Grand Fire and Rescue other than just strictly taxation on property? And what we know from researching that is there is an alternative, and it's called the benefit charge, where it's a fee, not a tax, and it's based on factors specific to each property and property type, such as square footage, what the occupancy is, and associated hazards. So again, it's not a tax, it's a fee based on square footage of buildings and what the building is used for. I think I have another question, I believe. Let me suspend the story and get back to a question from Karen. May I come by and pet the goats? Karen, it would be our honor to have you come by our station 96 on 224th and visit our goats, and absolutely they're soft, they're nice to pet. I find it interesting. Here's a little known fact, I believe. goats only have teeth on one side of their mouth. I didn't know that. I moved to this area from a city. I hadn't been around goats before. Goats only have teeth on one side, and yet they can chew everything. Fascinating to me. Okay, question from Brendan. Do you trade patches? So I'll answer personally, I don't, but there are firefighters who do trade patches. I don't have one that comes to mind in our organization that does patch trading, but I have some staff here helping me, and if we can come up with a thought and a name of somebody that trades patches, we'll come back in and let you know. I know of others that not only trade patches, Brendan, but back before this pandemic, if you ever happen to go to the Western Washington Fair, you may have seen large shadow boxes and display cases with firefighters that trade and assemble patch collections. It's pretty fascinating. So there are firefighters that do that. None of them come to mind for Graham, but thank you for the question. We'll get back to you if any of us think of someone that's doing it locally. Great question. All right, I don't see any other questions coming in, so back to our story of this notion of the benefit charge being Proposition 1 on the ballot November 3rd. So the question became, is there an alternate source of funding? And yes, our legislature, probably a couple decades ago, came up with a way to fund this critical service through a means other than property tax, and that is known as a benefit charge. So again, it's not a tax, it's a fee based on square footage, occupancy use, and the risk that it represents as it relates to our fire service deployment to control out-of-control fires in those buildings and associated hazards. So next, another point, it shifts the cost for our fire service deployment to properties that require greater number of resources to converge and control out-of-control fires. So generally speaking, residential properties of districts and departments that are on the benefit charge, residential properties go down, and larger commercial and multifamily occupancies go up. They tend to pay more than just taxation. So the logic of that is the properties that represent more risk and a bigger draw on our existence and resource pay more. Those occupancies that are smaller with less risk pay less. I'll get back to the storyline here. I see another question has come in. And the question's from Rex. Does the current tax go away and just the benefit charge is paid? Rex, great question. Let me answer you by saying, no, the current taxes don't go away. However, if approved on November 3rd, the benefit charge applies to Graham Fire and Rescue. The first step in the process to going to the benefit charges, everybody's taxes go down. And that's due to the fact that the fire levy that we collect taxes on currently is $1.50 per $1,000 of assessed value property. So that $1.50 fire levy goes down to $1. So every property across our district, there's about 23,000 parcels, they go down because the fire levy goes from $1.50 to $1. So that's the first step. And then the benefit charge is applied to property types, and there's 4 property types: residential, mobile home, commercial, and multifamily. So that benefit charge is applied very specifically to each parcel based on square footage and what the occupancy is used for. So Rex, I hope I answered your question about the taxes go away. No, we still, on a benefit charge, I'll conclude that question by saying about 75% of our revenue remains taxation on property value. About 25% of our revenue would be the benefit charge. Great question, Rex. I see another question from Chris. I'll take that one. How does that equate to properties that have multiple dwellings on them? Well, great question, Chris. It is a factor because it's based on square footage. So the square footage total on properties that have multiple buildings, it's a sum of the square footage of those buildings. Now, interestingly, if they're less than 400 square feet, then there's no application of the benefit charge because that's very small and represents little risk. Over 400 square feet, it's a sum total of the buildings that reside on one parcel. Great question, Chris, and I hope I answered your question. And through these questions, of course, we're diverging several facts about the benefit charge, which is what we wanted to talk about over coffee this morning. Great questions, thank you. In fact, we have another one coming in, it looks like from David. Question from David: did your department assist in fighting wildfires in California, or were you too busy here? What a great question. The month of September was one for the books, wasn't it, David? So our members from Graham Fire and Rescue did not deploy to California. You probably saw in news footage that local firefighters from the area did deploy to California. However, your question is on point because Labor Day and that time frame, around that time when California was largely on fire, Graham Fire experienced our largest incident since our existence began in the year 1962. So it was a brush fire, started as a brush fire in our El Dorado community neighborhood area. If you recall, it was quite literally a perfect storm of extreme weather conditions, and that was high temperatures, super low humidity, and then as the afternoon of Labor Day went on, we experienced really high winds out of the east. So what happened was, in fact, a tree was blown down with the high winds onto just normal service power lines, not high tension large power lines. Took a power line down into a grass field area, sparked, started a brush fire, and the high winds just whipped it into a frenzy into a neighborhood area, and it was the largest incident covering 275 acres, and that we lost 10 buildings, including 5 homes, and I'm sorry, 15 buildings, including 5 homes and 10 outbuildings. So we were sorry for the loss of property, but I'm very proud of our organization in the properties that we saved in the process. So we were extremely busy, yes, and did not deploy firefighters to California. Thanks for your question, David. All right, now it looks like a follow-up question from Rex, probably the same Rex. How is the value set, first of all, and can you change it at will? So if I understand your question correctly, Rex, the value on the benefit charge, or I think I'm going to answer that it's the fee, is again based on square footage and then risk factors in a calculation that apply to each specific property. And there's a formula that derives a fee that then is included from tax rolls from the county, and that's how the fee is assessed. And can you change it at will? I'll take that, meaning can the fire district change it at will? And the answer to that is by legislative authority, we have to form a board for the benefit charge, and the board can make adjustments to the fee in the benefit charge. And the way that we're held accountable, I say we, but there is a board that's formed, and the way that we're held accountable, that board, is that there is an appeal process once the fire benefit fee is set. There is an appeal process. It's open every year, and people are notified of the rate, and then they can appeal, and there's a public hearing, and a process that has to be answered by the board. Every appeal must get a response. So Rex, I hope I answered your question. Another great question. Thank you. After that, I don't see any more questions coming in just yet. So in regards to the fee that Rex just asked a great question that I hope I answered, Rex. He brings up something that comes to mind, and that is exemptions in the benefit charge. There are exemptions, standard exemptions, and discounts that apply once the benefit charge is assessed. And the exemptions are very similar to property tax exemptions, and those are religious, institutional facilities, public schools, publicly owned properties, and all of those housing authority properties similarly to taxes, are exempt. Okay. Another fact I'd like to discuss in regards to the benefit charge, and this is an important one. What we've submitted, that if passing on November 3rd, Proposition 1 on the ballot, if it passes, that for the benefit charge, that we will forgive and not collect the final 2 years of our maintenance and operations levy. The benefit charge would then, in effect, take the place of the maintenance and operations levy, and our intention is just to maintain the level of service that we have, which, by the way, is a high level of service. Is excellent, and it's not just my opinion. It has been validated and through the assessment from the Washington Surveying and Rating Bureau that, again, our rating changed from a 4 to a 3. The lower the number, the better, which saves all of our property owners in our district, gives them an opportunity to save in their property insurance. So it is a very high-performing service, and our intention with the benefit charge is to maintain that level of service. So again, homeowners in our district, it's a very high percentage, in the high 90s, will see a decrease in total between the property taxes that remain at 75% of our revenue and the benefit charge. In total, they'll go down. A high percentage of residential in the high 90s. And then again, commercial and multifamily go up in varying levels depending on the size of the building and what production or business occurs in that size of that building. So it will replace the M&O and maintain what we currently have level of service. I believe I have another question coming in, so I'll pause and go over to a question from Christopher. There is a limit to what you can collect annually, right? So that is the first question. I'll take that one, and that is correct. By the RCW, legislative authority allows you to collect only up to 60% of your operating budget. So that's the legal limit. I believe most agencies don't run close to that, though. Question mark, and that's true. So that brings up, I'll answer your question. That is true. Most are well below the 60%. And I'll give you our experience will be that it will be about 25% of our budget. And I'll explain that since we're having coffee this morning in a little more detail. The M&O, the maintenance and operations levy that I just talked about, that the benefit charge would replace, will forgive that and not collect the maintenance and operations levy, represents about 15% of our budget currently in 2020. Now the other 10% comes from back to when I discussed the fact that if on the benefit charge, the first thing that happens is all property tax goes down for every type of occupancy and parcel in our district, because the fire levy goes from $1.50 down to $1. All of them drop, and that represents about 10% of our budget currently. So in total, 15% M&O, 10% drop off the M&O, drop the fire levy 10%, that's a total of 25%. And here's the proof that the benefit charge replaces that. It's about 25% of our operating budget. So that's a great 2 questions. I hope I answered both parts of your question, Christopher. Thanks for that great question. And I have another one coming in from Karen. Can you talk a little bit about how it helps Medic 1, 2? What a great question. Thanks for asking that, Karen. So you may hear at time and again people refer to the benefit charge as the fire benefit charge, which is really sort of a misnomer, and we refer to it with intent as the benefit charge because it is allowable to spend up to 60% of your budget. Like I just said, it's 25% of our budget, but it is for fire suppression and control and all things related to fire, even prevention, and emergency medical services also. So it does help fund Medic 1 in our organization, which the medical calls represent nearly 80% of our total call volume. Again, in 2019, that was just over 7,000, and about 80% of those are medical calls. So the benefit charge does fund Medic One also. In fact, we say that the benefit charge is intended to maintain Fire and Medic One here at Grand Fire and Rescue. Thank you, Karen, for that question, and thank you for inviting me to talk a little bit about Medic One. I have a question that just came in from my friend, who I haven't seen in a while, Ricky Walsh. Ricky Walsh says, what I read Ricky Walsh saying is, Pat, what other fire departments locally are funded by a benefit charge? Ricky Walsh, thanks for that question. And I think our viewers, citizens, would find it interesting to know that while I talked about this as our legislature seeing the need to provide an option to diversify funding away from just taxing property, and it's been in place in a number of departments in our area, to answer my friend Ricky's question, for a number of years. So there's, in the greater Puget Sound, we can cite that Puget Sound Fire, Regional Fire Authority, has been on it for probably 20 years. There's Woodinville, there's Renton Regional Fire Authority, there's District 25, District 40 in King County, and then locally here, Central Pierce, who we share a border with just a few blocks from where I'm sitting here today. Central Pierce Fire and Rescue, a high-performing organization, and our response partner for automatic and mutual aid, has had the benefit charge in place for over 20 years. So there is local experience, and for a couple decades, really. Again, Central Pierce being over 20 years, and Puget Sound Regional Fire Authority, which covers Kent and that surrounding area, has been on it for probably 20 years also. Ricky Walsh, I hope you're doing well. Thanks for the question. All right. No other questions coming in at the moment that I see. So I want to mention now that thank you for joining me for coffee. It's a great way to spend this Saturday morning. And I want you to know that if after this you have any questions, or really at any time as we go into the general election, if you have questions about your specific property, because I want to be as transparent as I can and not cause any confusion with the fact that this is a fee, not a tax, and it's applied very specifically to each parcel in our district, and we have about 23,000 of those. So the best way that we can be transparent and provide you facts is a direct comparison. We know what you're paying for this essential service, Medic One and fire protection this year, 2020. We can give you a direct comparison that if we were on the benefit charge in 2020, we would directly compare what you're paying this year to what you would be paying if we were on the benefit charge. So to do that, you can go to our website, www.grahamfire.org, or an email that's benefitcharge@grahamfire.org. You can email, it's as simple as just giving us your address, and then Battalion Chief Todd Jensen is working the calculations, and he'll reply to you in likely the same day to your question, unless it comes in on a weekend, then it will be the following Monday. But he'll reply back and very promptly to a direct comparison of your specific property. And that's just a little value-added personal service that we'd like to offer to you. I heard a question come in, so let me switch over to an offline question. There are no hydrants in my neighborhood. Where does your water supply come from if there is a fire at my house? Great question. We do have areas of our district that we cover that are not supplied with fire hydrants, which represents, I mean, logically quite a challenge when there's fires that occur and fires within buildings and people's lives at risk. But the deployment model that we have is we have a tender, which is a big tanker truck, and we're soon to take delivery of our second tender. Thank you for passing the M&O. We said we'd buy a water tender, and it'll be here very soon, probably this month. So we deploy a water tender that carries thousands of gallons of water to create a water supply in the absence of hydrants, and then we shuttle water back and forth from the nearest hydrant to the water tenders, 2 from our district, and if it's large enough, like the Labor Day fire, 224th, in the El Dorado community, we had tenders from several of our automatic and mutual aid, and actually statewide resources helped mobilize in an area that was not served by hydrants. So it's a plan that we've had in place, and we train, and the 2 tenders does receive Washington State Surveying and Rating Bureau credits for people that live in those areas that don't have hydrants. Great question. Looks like I have another question coming in. It's not a question coming in, but again, I just started talking about the Washington State Surveying and Rating Bureau re-rate that we had just this year. So when we were re-rated, we had increased staffing, and it all came again from the warm support that we enjoy here at Grand Fire and Rescue from our voters in 2018 passing the maintenance and operations levy tax, and we said that we would hire 18 firefighters, purchase a water tender, and recruit and put into our deployment 14 volunteer and resident firefighters. So we accomplished those things rapidly. When we were re-rated by WSRB, we went from a fire classification rating of 4 to a 3. Now is it 600 or in excess of 600 fire departments in our state that were in the re-rating? I think I misspoke and said 400 earlier. There's over 600 fire departments in Washington that are rated by the WSRB. We're one of them. I want you to know that we're in the top 10% here at Grand Fire and Rescue of the ratings of fire departments in our state. We're one of about 30 some departments that are rated as a 3. We went from a 4 to a 3. We're in that top 30, and I want you to know that there's 13 fire departments in the state that are rated as a classification 2, and there are no 1s. So that puts us in the top 10% of ratings for fire classification ratings in Washington State. What does all that mean to you? It has a direct effect to money back in your pocket, quite literally, in that you will save. You have an opportunity to save in your property insurance because of the rating if you reside in our district. So contact your carrier, let them know that I live in the Graham Fire and Rescue service area, and they've informed me that we went from a 4 to a 3. What am I going to save on my property insurance? Please take that step. Okay, a question from Ryan. Is the district planning to increase its budget for big capital improvements over the next few years? And Ryan, thank you for the question. Is the district planning to increase its budget for capital improvements over the next few years? So Ryan, the intention right now is specifically that we're talking about the benefit charge. It is, again, as I stated earlier, you may have missed it, but the intention is to replace the M&O and maintain Fire and Medic 1 services as we go forward. We understand that it's a somewhat unknown economic future ahead of us as we go into the year 2021, so we're being prudent and good stewards with the revenue that we have, and we're cautiously we want to maintain what we have with no plans currently for big capital improvements. We just want to maintain the level of service that we currently have. So Ryan, I hope I answered your question. Thank you for that question. Okay. As I pause, it's because I believe I have another question coming in. Great to see the questions coming in. Don't have one currently at this time. Okay. I'm checking my notes about the benefit charge, and as we wait for some more questions to come in, let me talk about another, as I started talking about the large incident that we had on Labor Day, I also want to let everybody know that was the biggest incident in scope, I would describe, in the history of Grand Fire and Rescue since we formed in 1962. what I want everyone to know is, with that going on, it was still with the backdrop that we're all dealing with this pandemic of COVID-19. So at Grand Fire and Rescue, before Labor Day and the large incident, I want you to know that early on, when the pandemic hit, that Grand Fire and Rescue, first of all, focused on, I focused us on our mission to deliver service when people call 911. We exist for the purpose of people that call 911 for fire or emergency medical needs. What I vowed to do is deliver service to address points. So it became clear to me that in order to do that, we need a healthy and fit for duty workforce. Our firefighters and paramedics are a highly skilled, highly trained, dedicated workforce that I needed to keep healthy and fit for duty. And the only way we can do that is to embrace all health department safety recommendations. So it changed us immediately, and in my view, I think it changed fire service delivery forever. We have an increased level of personal protective equipment that all of our firefighters wear that includes an air purifying respirator. So if you call for help, please don't be alarmed that they're wearing an air purifying respirator to protect them and to protect you. They wear goggles, gloves, and gowns, all specific to COVID and our deployment and response to keep our members safe so that we can come to your address when you need us. That's the nature of our business and existence, is to help people, and the way that we do that is embracing safety culture to keep our workforce safe and fit for duty. Again, it's delivered to address points with a highly trained, highly skilled workforce of firefighters and paramedics. Okay, checking for questions. There's a question that just came in. I see I probably have a couple. Is a benefit charge a permanent funding solution for the fire department? What a great question. So what we're relaying as facts about the benefit charge is we see it as a stabilization method and a sustainability method also. So the question is it a permanent funding solution? The benefit charge allowable by law is a 6-year term, and then it has to be renewed with voter approval. There is, by law, an allowance in renewal, the choice of renewing it for another 6 years. That takes 50% voter approval, or there is an option currently that language can be put in the ballot to make it permanent, and that would be at a 60% voter approval. So either way, it takes voter approval. There is an option to make it permanent, and I want to make a direct comparison with that permanent language, not to cause any alarm that there's not accountability that voters still have with us, because we have a permanent emergency medical service levy, and that takes voter approval to make it permanent, and then that levy collection for EMS is permanent, and the benefit charge has that option in renewal, and that would make it a permanent funding source for up to 60% of your operating budget. And again, I've said this will represent about 25% of our budget. So you might have put in a quarter in that question and got $1 worth. It was a great question, and I hope I answered that for you. Now, another question from Chris. Is it true that the benefit charge can vary per year? So if I understand your question correctly, Chris, the benefit charge is calculated annually, and that assessment comes out through the county tax. It's not a bill. It just comes in a statement of what your benefit charge is annually. Sometimes it might change a little bit, and other times it might just remain stable. And it kind of depends on, most of the time it's going to remain stable because the factors that it's relative to haven't changed, and that is square footage and the occupancy type. So most of the time it would on its own just remain stable and steady. Great question, Chris. Thanks for that question. more questions I'm checking that I don't see? All right. Okay. I want to remind people again, since I've talked about our fire classification rating through the agency Washington State Surveying and Rating Bureau. Since I've talked about that, I would just want to remind everybody to please check with your carrier to see if you realize savings, because most will realize savings in their property insurance in that process. And it's a circle that's so effective, and again, it started with the support that we have from our community, and we thank you for that with the passage of that M&O and us making improvements to our service delivery capability that was evaluated, noticed, and a 4 to a 3 classification saves you money. Now, in some instances, we've sent out a mailer recently. This took effect July 1st of this year. We sent a mailer out to all addresses in our district to ask you to please check with your carrier and see if you realize savings in your property insurance. Just a reminder. Okay, checking for questions. Okay, is there another question from Chris? Is there something in place that will not allow it to go above a certain amount? And Chris, yes, there is. The legislative authority by RCW for the benefit charge allows only up to 60% of your operating budget, no more. Now again, we're well below that in our calculations that are relevant to the November 3rd Proposition 1. We're at about 25% is what it represents of our budget. Thanks for that question, Chris. Okay. Another question I'll take here. Looks like okay, question. How can I find out how much I would be paying for the fire district if the fire district is on a benefit charge this year? Great question. I've talked about this earlier, but in case you missed it, what we're doing to be as transparent that we feel we possibly can and provide some added value and personalized service. If you have that question, there's information about the benefit charge, first of all, on our website, grahamfire.org. And more specifically, we have an email set up that you can ask us just simply and directly, what would I pay on the benefit charge? And give your address to the email benefitcharge, one word, at grahamfire, one word, .org. Benefitcharge at grahamfire.org. As simple as, what would my property be paying if we were on the benefit charge this year? Your address, and you'll get a reply back in short order. And that's we feel as specific and as transparent as we can be by letting you know with a direct comparison. We know with evidence what you're currently paying with taxation for Graham Fire and Rescue this year, 2020, and we can give a comparison that if we were on the benefit charge 2020, this is what your property would be paying, with the combination of property tax that goes down and then assessing the fee of the benefit charge. The sum total, we can give you that through the email. Thanks for that question. Okay, a question from Karen. Are there other areas that use this benefit charge? Great question. And Karen, in the greater Puget Sound area, there are several departments that utilize the benefit charge as a portion of their revenue source. And to name a few, Kent, which is now called Puget Sound Regional Fire Authority, covers the area of Kent and SeaTac and that large area up there. They've been on the benefit charge for probably 20 years or so. There's Renton Regional Fire Authority. There's districts in King County, District 25, District 40, I believe, are the districts that are on it. And locally, here, Central Pierce has been on the benefit charge for about 20 years. So that's a very local experience. We share a border just a few blocks from where I'm sitting here, and they've been on the benefit charge, like I said, for about 20 years. Okay, another question. Thank you for that question, Karen. Another question from David. Many properties in the district have narrow driveways or roads. Is this a factor the department considers when purchasing new equipment? First question. And then secondly, what can homeowners do to ensure the department can access these areas? So first of all, David, yes, it is a factor when there's narrow driveways and roads. It's the most difficult apparatus for us to get down those are the tenders, the water tenders that carry large amounts of water. They are large vehicles, and they're just necessarily large because they carry thousands of gallons of water to those rural areas that aren't served with hydrants. So it becomes a critical factor, and the best thing that we can ask our residents and citizens to do is, if you have those long narrow driveways, please keep the tree branches and the drives free so that we can access your property in the event that we would need to. That's the best thing that we can ask you to do. So the second part, I think I answered that also. Narrow driveways and roads, yes, they can add some complexity to our response, and please do what you can to keep those areas accessible by keeping things trimmed back. You know, that reminds me to talk about something while I'm waiting for some more to take some more questions, and that's back to that fire that we had on Labor Day that occurred in our district, the large brush fire that consumed 15 buildings, 5 homes and 10 outbuildings, and 275 acres. There was, it reminds me to talk about what you can do for a future occurrence like that to keep yourself and your property safe. And we call it creating defensible space, and it really does work. And it's the notion about, if there's a brush fire in your area, to keep the trees limbed up, the fences away from your structure, wood piles kept away from your structure, keep your grass mowed, in fact keep areas clean around your house, trees limbed up above your roof line, keep branches and debris off of your roof, and it just generally doesn't allow the fuel to get close enough to your house that it would extend to your house and cause damage or worse to your house. So creating defensible space works. It's a fact. We've seen it at our El Dorado area. There was in particular a home that had defensible space, and the home was untouched by the fire as it burned around their area. So defensible space works. I wanted to mention that. Okay, since I was talking about that, I've had another question come in, and the question comes from Luis, and the question is, how often does your reader board get updated? And I want to say that is 1 to 2 times per month. We update our reader boards in our district, and people can view safety messages, cooking videos, and other funny videos on our YouTube channel by searching Grand Fire and Rescue. So we have a talented staff here at Grand Fire and Rescue that our outreach is enormous and high performing. And again, I want to say, check for safety messages, fun cooking videos, and other funny videos and pertinent safety information by searching for our YouTube, Grand Fire and Rescue YouTube. All right. Looking for other questions. Another one came in from Chris. I may have missed it, however, could you please post that email address for the benefit charge on your Grand Fire page? Yes, we can. Absolutely. Great question. And we have information about our benefit charge on our website, and we definitely will post that email address on our Grand Fire webpage. Thank you for that quiz. Chris. Okay. I think at this time, a good thing for me to do is to ask for any other questions from our viewers who happen to tune in on this Saturday morning virtual coffee with me. And while I'm waiting for any any additional, any further questions to come in? I sense that I'm nearing the end of our virtual coffee time together because I'm nearly out of coffee, which to me signals that we're coming to the end of our time together. So in closing, I want to thank the viewers that have joined me today. I hope this has been beneficial in sharing some facts about not only the benefit charge, but about Graham Fire and Rescue and the service, the essential service that we deliver through our talented, highly skilled, highly trained workforce of firefighters and firefighter paramedics and volunteer resident firefighters. Okay, I have another question from Luis, who asks, roughly how many people are in each fire station in our district? And the way I want to answer that is that we have some stations that have a combination of a fire engine and a medic unit, and our minimum staffing is 2 people on the fire engine and 2 people on the medic unit. And then we do have one station that has a fire engine only, and the minimum staffing is 2 people on the fire engine. So occasionally we have 3 people on the fire engine. It's not a minimum staffing. We do have 2. And national standards in our country are actually a 3-person for 3 people on an engine, and we are occasionally experiencing that, but not all the time. Okay. With that, I'll mark that as our final question. Thank you for that. I want to close by thanking everybody for joining me today for the virtual coffee time. And again, I hope it was beneficial, not only in my want to impart some facts to everyone about the benefit charge, but just discussing Graham Fire and Rescue and the wonderful service that we deliver with our wonderful members at Graham Fire and Rescue. I hope some of you can come to our stations at some time once we're at a point where we can allow that again, once the pandemic is at a different place than it is today. Again, I want to thank everybody for joining me. I hope to do this again soon, and I want you to know that your safety is our priority.